everyone on the call a happy, healthy, prosperous, joyous New Year, productive New Year. And may the Lord bless each and every one with just a great, great year, and I feel good about it. Let me touch real quick on what you just said at the outset regarding a business that we really are able to reach out to people throughout the year. There's not a low-end, high-end season. People are there. I found myself out in the field up to the 31st of December, and, in your mind you're thinking somebody's going to say, hey, look, this is Christmas time, this is the holidays, see me afterwards. Yeah, and I did get one or two people, but for the most part, by going into their homes and just being there, people were in a spirit of acceptance, of joy, and they were in good moods, and we were able to secure some business during those waning days of 2016, and that helps. That really, really helped my goal. But yes, as Chase mentioned, verbal and nonverbal, I got to thinking about what we do as agents, and indeed, I think a lot of times we tend to lean in the direction that most of our work and efforts are on verbal communication. We really strive to get a presentation, everything that our message contains has to do with words, and this is very true. But as I analyzed this and I did some research, it was interesting that some great communicators and people that study the subject of communication had to say that about 35% of what is brought across in the world of communication is verbal, and yet 65% is nonverbal. So I just wanted to touch on that. I think it can help everyone. It certainly helps me in my overall approach in visiting clients. So what are nonverbals? Let's start off with those. This particular research said that facial gestures, voice inflections, movement of your body parts, clothing, your body posture, your eye contact are significant aspects of that. I think I'm going to relate to that movement of your body parts. I always was told that have everything that you think you're going to need at the table. There's something about reaching into a bag to pull out an application or reaching. Anytime you do that, I was always told that the client knows what you're doing, and you're sending out a telegraphic message that says, okay, now we're going into, the contract. We're getting into where money is going to be exchanged. So anything I need, I want to have there at the table so that I'm not making any unnecessary movement of my body, my arms, or eliminating any kind of removal of myself from that kitchen table setup that I have between me and them. The only time that I ever leave is at the outset. When I come in, one of my first nonverbal communications, I don't bring anything home other than myself and my lead cards, indicating that I have a lot of people that I see. So they're not intimidated by me coming in with a bag of tricks to come in and maybe scare them or indicate that I'm there to make a long presentation. But the eye contact that is mentioned, I think is so critical. I think the clothing that we wear, everyone has their attire, whether you wear a tie or if you're male, female. I just think that it has a lot to do with being professional. I think one thing that was not mentioned was the vehicle appearance. I think that has a lot to say about the nonverbal. Sometimes it's possibly appropriate when you're parking on the side that you're careful you're not getting on top of their grass. One of the things I look up here in my neighborhood is when somebody's parking off the side, I'm quick to see if they're hitting my grass because I pay somebody to come out here and take care of it. I don't want them to get their tires over it. Those little things like that they may not communicate with you verbally, but non-verbally the message is this guy is on my grass and I don't like him from the get-go. That can give you some points against you from the beginning. Obviously, it wasn't mentioned, but I think it's important. Body hygiene, breath, body odors. Certainly, we are in a situation that many times we might there might be smokers, or you may go in and not realize it, but there is an essence of smoke that's in the clothing that may be offensive to the people. So I think that are very, very important, checkpoints that we have to look at. I know one thing that I find myself doing is meeting with a lot of what I would say intercultural folks, different nationalities, different countries. It seems like I see a lot of them, and that communication, usually face-to-face or the telephone, anything like that, if you sense that there's a communication issue on the telephone, then I'm going to encourage you to put the phone to the side and go see them face-to-face. That can make a huge difference in helping you with the cultural communication or maybe a language communication. Another nonverbal would be, internet. Some people want things in the mail, what you may send out. Anything that is asked to be sent out, I think, needs to be done in a way where it entices them to see you. I try not to give all the information because I really don't know what I need to do until I see them. So when they ask for nonverbal communications like email or mail me brochures or send me something in the mail, I'm going to honor it, but I'm going to do it in a way where it gives me the justification to be able to come back again and say, yes, I sent you something, but now I need to kind of get more fact-finding information for you. The handshake is a strong nonverbal communication, a wordless communication. And one thing I also notice in the research is that much of the nonverbal information that's sent out is used to interpret whether verbal communication is true or authentic. In other words, they're judging you by what you're not saying initially, and then they start putting it all together when you start speaking to them. So I think a lot of the sale, a lot of the acceptance of you and them in terms of providing service and them accepting your service is going to be nonverbal translated into verbal. I want to just touch on a couple of other things. This gentleman that I did some of the research from, Dr. Albert Mehrabian, he breaks it down like this. 55% of any message is generated by face-to-face and body. 55%, that's pretty intense. 38% is the way anyone speaks, their tone, their volume, etc. One of the things I try to do is if they're speaking loud to me, I will mirror that and try to speak as loud to them. Obviously, I want to make sure they're able to hear me. If they're speaking soft, I will mirror that so that I'm not offensive. We tend to think that if somebody is up there in the age that they're not hearing us, and yet their hearing may be perfectly fine. We don't want to be offensive. So 38% is the way anyone speaks. 7% is from the words that we say. So, if we're putting a lot of stock in a long, drawn-out script, put the value to it, 7%. I thought this was pretty interesting, smiling. And we commonly refer to smiling as the universal positive nonverbal. However, and sometimes we'll run across Russian client families, the Russians consider a smile as considered to be impolite. So I'm going to remember that. I'm going to be careful that I'm not in any way offending them. It's good to know some of the cultures and multicultures that we're working with now in the field. For most parts, I would have to say that the smile is an acceptance, and they usually respond back with a smile. In the course of a week, I guess I would say I've had maybe anywhere between 5 to 7 different cultural experiences, and we need to kind of study that and make sure that that they're accepting us and that we are in some way trying to find out or communicate to the point where they understand us and we understand them. I sent this chart to Chase, and it's a non-communication body language chart. I thought this was pretty good. Keep this in mind. Sounds like laughing, pauses, stress on words. I think that would be important. So if you're going to put emphasis on that 7% of word communication, verbal, our pauses, our planned pauses, what we emphasize. Sometimes less of what we say is better than more of what we say. Very important nonverbal would be the space between you and them. I always try to, at the door, when I approach it with my leads in my hand and nothing else, that I back up a couple of paces. I'm sure many people on this call do just that, to avoid the fear that you're intruding or encroaching into their space. I back off deliberately and watch what they do. Again, the body contact, the shaking of the hand, the facial expressions, and, of course, the eye movements. He's pointing out as to being critical nonverbal communication, body signals, and body language. Moving into one thing that I thought about as I was reviewing this, when somebody mails in a card and then FS sends this card to us, I feel like that's the first sign of a nonverbal. There's a reason. I remember, I think it was Eric who once said, everybody that sends a card because there is an interest. It may be a very cool to lukewarm interest. It may be very cold interest. It may be very warm to hot, and it may be hot to very hot. But there's a reason why a direct mail card is mailed. So when we take that card, I'm going to look at it until I have a reason to think otherwise as it being a very hot card, and then I'll take it from there once I see them. But appreciate the direct mail card. Appreciate it because there is value in that. We have said that in these calls through the years that, you're as effective as being all dressed up and having somewhere to go. Nonverbal is when you ask a trial close question. I remember Joe Chacha and I being in a home a couple of years back, and we asked a trial close question, and literally it seemed like the awkward pause was about 30 minutes. I know it wasn't. It felt like that. It was about 2 to 3 minutes of complete silence. When a verbal close is made, then we have to convert to a nonverbal at that point and not say anything else until the client or prospective client turns his nonverbal to verbal. And then, and only then, should we speak. So we did that, even though it felt so awkward. And a sale was made based on the fact that we didn't invade his space and we did not appear overbearing, rude, or not listening to him. So we sat and we listened and we listened and we were waiting, and finally he did speak. We can speak on this subject. I think it's a fascinating subject, Chase, because as agents, this is what we do for a living. We're taking someone and we are trying to create an element of trust when we have never met them. Now, you think about what we do. We take a car that could be absolutely ice cold. We turn that car, we transform it. We go through the steps of knocking on their door, approaching them. We go into possibly a warm-up, a prelude, the ultimate presentation, and the trial closes and the closes. And we take them from something that's ice cold to something that is so hot that they give us a voided check and commit to a monthly premium payment plan. To me, every time that happens to me, really, and I've been in sales a long time, it's a miracle. It's purely a miracle. But the verbal and the nonverbal communication and how we put it all together, and remember the 55% face-to-face, 38% the way anyone speaks. Now, what we say is how we say it, and then 7% the words that are actually spoken. Chase, I'll open it up to anybody who has a question or a comment.
Awesome. Thank you, Jack. If anybody has a question or a comment, you can hit *2 on your line. We'll get you unmuted, let you throw anything out there that you may have. And while we wait on anybody who may want to raise their hand and throw something out there, Jack, I'll come back to really good points. And one thing that you do so well, the other top producers, is, you are very genuine when you are in the home. I had the luxury and the pleasure of coming out there and riding with you and Joe for a few days a couple years ago, and the one thing that Eric could not stop talking about was your rapport building is great, and that's a great trait that most top producers have, but the ability to be genuine when you're with them is one of the biggest keys to building rapport, and Eric and I both noticed that very quickly. If you ever have the opportunity to meet Jack, you'll see that very quickly. There's no fluff. There's no BS. Jack is very genuine, and when you go in and you visit with clients, I think that's one of the biggest things that stands out to them, Jack, is they know you're an educated man, you know your stuff, you know your products, but they see very quickly how genuine you are and that you genuinely care about, getting them taken care of. So I appreciate you spending the time today on the call. It was a great topic, great subject, and you did a great job covering it and going in detail. If anybody has a question or a comment that they would like to throw out there, we got a big turnout today for the call, lots of people on, actually about 78 people on the call right now. If anybody has a question or a comment, you can throw it out there. We've got the lovely one, Lovely Johnson. Lovely, go ahead. Your line's unmuted.
Okay. Sorry, I'm getting work done in my house. That was a very good call, and I appreciate you going over that topic. I just have one question because one thing I do kind of struggle with is I have so many carriers, and I'm actually trying to knock a couple of them out right now. So a lot of times, I don't know exactly which company to go directly to, so I still find myself having to look at the application and the questions, when I'm inside the house. So I was noticing that you had said, don't grumble or go into your bag because, you don't want to distract them at all. So that's one thing that I kind of struggle with. So how do you know exactly, after talking to them and building your rapport, how do you know exactly which carrier, to navigate to?
Well, that's a great question, Lovely. And, I'm going to have everything I need once I have retrieved my material from the car. After I've asked some preliminary questions when I meet them. And when I go in with nothing, I just take notes. I ask them, obviously, their age, tobacco user, non-tobacco user, some preliminary health questions, heart, lungs, cancer, diabetes, neuromuscular diseases. I'm going to focus on those things, use of oxygen, any issues, any tests that you don't have the results at this point. What about any medicines? Usually that's my last question because the medicines are going to tell me a lot. So I kind of do all that at the very beginning. Once that's been established, then I'm going to be real honest with you. I think all of us, if we're really sincere with us on this call, we got a to-go company that we use. And I'm going to tell you that I'm going to go to Royal Neighbors, 8, 9 times out of 10, if they can meet those qualifications and I'm providing the best program for them. If not, then, again, I'm going to know. And once I know which company to go and I come back in with that company, then I have it out in front. I don't have to do anything else because I already know what the questions were and how they were asked. And if it's going to be Transamerica, because let's just say they have COPD and I want to put them on an immediate coverage and I put them on a standard, then I'll go that way, or maybe a Liberty Bankers. And I'll know that so that I don't have to do a lot of, hunting and pecking for it and reaching into my material. I'll have the company. I have the prescription. I know where I'm going to go with it at that point. I don't know whether that helps you, Lovely, or not, but that's how I approach it.
Yeah, that does help, but in say those cases where the person might not have been all the way up front, so you go through the Royal Neighbors application and then they get declined. Do you kind of have a go-to guarantee issue, or do you try another company that would require a phone interview?
Good point. So then at that point, what I say to them is, as I told you from the very beginning, I'm a broker. So my agency, Equita Final Expense Services, has found companies that we partner with, that we associate with, that work well with people between 50 and 85 years old. So no problem. Don't be discouraged. I've got somebody else that might be more liberal on your situation, and I'll go with that particular carrier for you. So at that point, then I can go ahead and reach, because now they're looking at me as, oh, you're solving my problem. So at that point, they're going to buy. It's just a matter of, what church am I going to put them with? That's pretty much where I'm at been. And it's okay to then bring out another carrier and start asking those questions and say, hey, look, this one doesn't care about that medicine. This one doesn't care about that question. That's not going to be significant. And then I proceed to, write them up with that plan, because I know it's going to be accepted.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that.
You're more than welcome, Lovely. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Lovely, for throwing that out there. If anybody else has a question or a comment for Mr. Jack, you can hit *2 on your phone. That'll raise your hand, and we'll get you unmuted, and let you throw anything out there that you may have, a question or a comment. If not, we'll go ahead and turn Mr. Jack loose and let you guys get back out there and do your thing. So we'll kind of make it last call for any questions if anybody has anything. It's a big group, but it's a bashful group. So Jack, I want to say thank you for taking the time today. I know that whenever we have you guys as guest speakers, it's already 11:30 where you're at. You're typically out knocking and rocking already. So I want to say thanks again for taking the time today. It does not look like we have any other questions, no other hands raised. Once again, I'll commend you, man. You did a great job on the call, and this will be a great recording that we can reference to at a later date. And thank you again for taking the time. It was an awesome call.
My pleasure, Chase. Thank you. You guys have a great one.